Welcome back, everyone. I'm so glad to have you on the show because I'm here with my friend Dennis Mortensen, the founder and CEO of x.ai, who does probably need that Red Bull because he's pioneering the first artificial intelligent assistant, Amy and Andrew Ingram, who you probably already know. Dennis, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. Again,
there's no way that we can go through everything that's happened from when we first spoke this time last year. Can you catch us up on just a couple of the big milestones or achievements your team is really proud of?
So you and I did indeed chat more than a year ago. It seems like last week, but it was not last week. It's more than a year ago. And I think we certainly weren't surprised the day we started the company that this would be a year-long endeavor, not a weekend hackathon, not 3 months in Palo Alto, but year-long endeavor. And that first milestone of the company, when we put the team back together in late 2013, was really just one of us being able to prove that this can be done. Not as in it's a good idea. I think we all agree that this is a wonderful idea. If I can have some agent take over and schedule all my meetings, how fantastic. But can it be done? And that almost first year until the end of 2014, that was all just us working on proving that this is indeed tractable, that there's something for where if you apply enough time, energy, and money, out comes an agent. But we weren't 100% sure, but we just jumped into the pool and assumed that we would get to the other side. And then in late 2014, first days of 2015, we had what we believe was proof. And on the back of that data set, we raised that $10 million Series A round and have since then built up the team to 64 propeller heads, are now in 2016, are about to extend the team again, will be in market with a pro and business product come autumn this year. So cross your fingers. Everything is, at least so far, going according to plan.
Well, Dennis, what always surprises me about Amy, and you've written about this a couple times, is from my end, it's very easy. She schedules a meeting for me. I click. I mean, she even sends me the calendar invite with the Skype, and I'm still not sure how she knows it's a Skype, but I'll leave that to you guys. But you made a statement one time that the sentence, "Sure, Dennis, how about Monday-Wednesday, perhaps 8," is actually a lot harder to unpack than we might think.
What you want in a perfect setting, obviously, I think, for any product is no complexity on the user end, but the less complexity you want to put on the user, typically the more complexity you have to put on the creator. And we are on the creating end here, and we decided early on that it's not that we had some sort of unique epiphany for where we understood that there was pain embedded into that of setting up meetings. I think everybody understands that, which is why you have a plethora of solutions out there who try to solve the same pain. But we just don't believe in the app or extension or plugin or web service or Tungle Me or Doodle Me. What we believe is that what you really wanted, if you could afford it, is a human personal assistant that could sit in your front office right now, and Jesse, your new assistant, would work on your calendar to your liking. It's just that Jesse is too expensive. So you don't. So either you do it yourself or you wait for some geeks like us to arrive and we develop this intelligent agent that can do that specific task. But we cannot surrender on this idea that it must mimic, replicate, or completely kind of emulate that of having Jesse sit in your front office. That means you would never ask Jesse, where's your app? Show me your features. What can I do with you? All of those would just be unacceptable, even in your front office, I'm most sure. So what we need here is something where that you wouldn't ask that to Amy. You would just assume that I tell you something, you understand it, and just do what I told you to do. And that stress is interesting because it provides maximum joy on the user end, but it provides maximum pain on our end. And you and I talked about before, where those little things that you and I just don't even think about turn into massive complexities on our end, because you'll say things like, let's meet up at Wednesday. Okay, that's certainly somewhat easy to understand. It's on Wednesday, but which Wednesday? I can assume that it might be the first coming Wednesday. Fair enough. Or could it be that when you say, let's meet up next week, that seems about fair. In 5 or 6 days from now, there'll be another week, and that's the week you want to meet. What does next week mean Sunday night at 10? Does that mean in 2 hours from now? Or does that mean in 7 days from now? Or let's meet up, as you kind of suggested yourself, let's meet up at Wednesday-Friday. The machine obviously will have somewhat an easy time of picking up the words Wednesday and Friday. That dash, though, I'm sure any human would translate into Thursday, as in it's a range. When do we confirm that this is indeed a range? And those are the kind of somewhat easy cases. And the more you look into this, the more ambiguity you just see being embedded into anything which humans do. And that's the challenge, and that's really what we're working on. And people will say, but haven't you worked on this kind of scheduling thing now for more than 2 years? What's the next thing? We just want to perfect Amy. We want her to be so good that it seems even silly to hire a human, if you could afford a human, to do this particular task. You can hire humans to do many other tasks, which I think they're much better at, but for this particular task, you would want a machine. So that's really what we've been working on, and we keep working on. To the point for where you should forget, even though that you know that Amy or Andrew is a machine, you should just forget it, as in, it doesn't matter. I just assume when I email them, they get it, and they do what I want them to do.
Well, I think that goes back to the pressure that's put on your team. How intense is it right now about getting those meetings right? Because if you screw up a couple, people are going to stop using Amy.
So we have a lot of kind of interesting settings here, which is that we must deliver on this promise of what we call, at least internally, invisible software. As in, this can never be an app. This can never be a website. This can only be Amy, which exists in dialogue. And that is something where we will either solve it or die trying. SoftBank hates it when I say that, specific, but we would rather just keep chasing it. And that's kind of on this side over here, where we should just not give up on that at all. Then there's other stresses, as you suggest here, which is that we happen to deal with something which is of such importance that if we don't do it right, I'm trying to find the right words, people are a little bit disappointed. I think that is the most politically correct way I can put it, as in, they'll be fucking mad if I was supposed to meet up with an investor and Amy screwed it up. Not cool. But on the flip side of that, that's also why people want this product, right? That this is an important task which I want done, and I want it done so well that even me kind of half working it in my inbox at 11 p.m. tonight over a bowl of cereal is not good enough. I need somebody to work on this full time, aka Amy. And that's why I think we have a fair business justification for us actually being in market with a paid product, that if we do what we promise to do, people will be able or willing to kind of give me $9 or $14, whatever the price might end up be when we're in market. But you're right, it's very delicate. We need to make sure that you ask us to do 10 meetings, we do 10 meetings.
We've shared before that you're building the tools to build the machine while building the machine.
That's, I think it's a very good thought process for a lot of people who might not work with stuff like we do. And there's plenty of companies for where the data foundation is so important that even before you start working on the actual problem, you need to kind of work on the tools that will help you start working on the problem. And that is typically when you're in your darkest hour, right, for where you work for the first year and you haven't even really touched the product, you've just been working on the tools which you need to really work on the product. And this is very similar to that self-driving car or drilling that tunnel for where the tunnel itself is very easy to envision. I need a tunnel from Manhattan to New Jersey. It's probably going to take us 3 years. What is the first thing you work on? Probably not the tunnel. It's probably the drill. You're going to be working on that drill for the first 2 years and trying to figure out exactly what type of drill do we need to put in place to drill a tunnel from Manhattan to New Jersey. And we need to build a purpose-built drill for that specific task. Once that drill has done its job, 3 years in, and we meet in the middle, you're probably going to disassemble that drill and not use it again because we have the tunnel now. In that self-driving car, some of those silly cameras that they put on top of those Toyotas, that's not going to be the car when in market. But we need something to help us kind of collect some data. So we're going to put some odd-looking cameras, lasers, lidars on top of that Toyota, drive around on a parking lot, get to 2 miles, look at some data and say, this is kind of shitty. Okay, out we go tomorrow, drive another 5 miles and see what does that look like. And you do that for years and years. And what are they? About 7 years into it? But we're in the same setting for where there were no meeting scheduling data, which we could go acquire and say, hey, let's look at this data and then we'll model on top of it. There was just nothing. Just literally nothing.
Good market to choose.
Yes, there. So we started out with just setting up one meeting. Then you look at it and thinking, okay, let's do another one. Let's do another one. Let's do 1,000. Let's do 10,000. Until you get into millions of emails that we have, with great pain, annotated, labeled, verified, so that we can create models on top of them. Sorry, that's a very long semi-rant on the pain that we've gone through over the last 2 years, but I think it's just such a good observation from your end on what it really takes to build, data-dependent companies like ours, and there's many of them. Most people start in a place where there's some data, and I think only the most brave start in a place where there's nothing.
I think it's a really good point, and you've discussed previously that scaling AI is going to be an incremental change. It's not going to be overnight. Just like I don't sit here and be like, I think I can have a self-driving car, and then in a month we're all going to be driving around in self-driving cars.
It would be wonderful if you and I woke up sometime February 10th, 2018, and out comes some human-level AI from Google. Ta-da! You can ask it anything. It's your new best friend, and all of that good stuff that Hollywood had told us over the years. I just find that completely unrealistic. I don't see that happen. I can't create a scenario in my mind where that's a reasonable outcome. What I think is much more likely is what you allude to, which is that there's probably going to be not just one, but a whole army of verticalized AIs. Mm-hmm. People like us for where, 60 plus propeller heads in a basement over X number of years focus on one specific vertical, and then they get to the bottom of it and say, hey, we have an agent that to a very large degree understands this specific subject matter and can do it really well. Hopefully, there'll be other agents that comes along. And what I foresee be the future is not one for where this tada agent arrives at some oracle level. No, one for where these verticalized agents start to talk to each other. That means your next meeting will be in San Jose. And I know you don't live in San Jose. So somehow I need to know through your travel agent, who might also be a machine, when do you arrive in San Jose? So I set up the meeting so you can get from the airport to the meeting in time. So instead of me asking you looking up your itinerary, how about I just ask your travel agent? Mm-hmm. Now that I've asked your travel agent, I can see that the meeting is running late. Then your hotel agent is asking me, when does the meeting end? Because I don't think she can make it back in time. Then your hotel agent makes sure that you're booked for the night. And when you're booked for the night, then somehow that is being reported back. And all of a sudden, you have this dialogue between these agents where you're not even involved. Because all you wanted was actually to meet up with this potential new employee or partner in San Jose. And that is where I think it's going to turn exciting.
It lends really well to what you'd said in a previous blog post, which, by the way, the content that you guys are investing in now is so helpful to start understanding AI a little bit more. But you said that you believe AI is an agent for change, enabling us to catalyze on our creative pursuits. So I'm not going to be spending time looking, for example, with travel, at every single airline to find the best fare. I can do something else.
You and I read the same blogs, and every second one of them will have some sort of idea of there being mass unemployment in the future and us having created AI to whatever extent is like us having summoned the devil and all those kind of doomsday scenarios. I just don't believe that. I'm obviously overly optimistic about life in general and all of that good stuff. I'm just a happy guy. But I just can't play out this scenario for where we end up worse because I'm not so sure that at any moment in time somebody came up to you and gave you a hug and said, hey, that 1:30 meeting that you scheduled for next Thursday, that was really good work. I really like that. I'm taking note of that. It doesn't make any sense. As in, there's no specific creativity from your end to where a Thursday meeting at 1:30 in Midtown, that was
Hey, I
really
might throw in
solid.
an exclamation point sometimes. You don't know.
It's like, yeah, I really like that. Because had it been Wednesday at 10, that would have been shitty. But this one I really like. You know what? It's just a task. And given that we don't have anybody else doing it, you're it. And I think if I can free you from doing that, some of the stuff which you do really well, talking to me, speaking to your employees, having these conversations outside of this, where you're creative, that's value. Setting up a meeting, not so much. Finding the cheapest JetBlue flight to San Jose, you know what? I actually think you're poorer at it than any one of the agents that we could otherwise put in your place. We kind of fool ourselves into this idea that you and I are good travel agents. We're not. We're shitty travel agents. We do a little bit of Expedia, a little bit of this and that, and then we check, Google. They have a little kind of bar chart. I can see Wednesdays are cheaper to travel on. Perhaps I'll stay overnight. It's like, where is this coming from, Dennis? You're not a travel agent. You're trying to kind of figure it out. So I actually do think some of these tasks should be handed over to agents that would do it better so that you and I can do what we're actually really good at.
I love that. And before we go, Dennis, I just want to focus on one or two questions about your team. You've led many teams before, very successful businesses. What's different about x.ai and working in this type of uncharted territory?
Here's the thing that I've discovered, and it seems very obvious in hindsight, and perhaps to some degree we've used it a little bit before, but this time we've certainly see that work to our advantage, which is that we are working on something for where it is clearly very hard. It is hard to the extent for where we might not make it, but it's not impossible. As in, it's not you and me contemplating creating a rocket to go to Saturn. As in, we're probably not going to make that in our lifetime. It's a good idea though, and we can kind of talk about it, but you and I are not going to Saturn, not anytime soon. But setting up this construct or company for where a pool of people get together and work on a mission for where we could see a verticalized AI come out on the other side. It's going to take years, but guys, it could happen. And outcomes, yes, perhaps a little bit of money, but glory. That have worked really well. Actually, for us to get some of the by far best data scientists that we could find working on something that haven't been solved before, that was the only way we could hire them. That was not something for where they would go work with us on some ad exchange for where we squeeze out another 0.4% CTR on some ad. Just couldn't hire these people. But for this, for where we might die, that was just a great setting to hire really highly qualified people. And then the whole thing turns into this positive loop, as you know. If you hire A players to begin with, they hire other A players, and then all of a sudden you have a good momentum on kind of building that team. But I think any venture, if I'm ever doing anything in the future, and this is supposed to be my last venture, that's what I promised my wife and kids, that this is it. So we're going to make the most of this one. That I would suggest anybody pick something which is so hard, but not impossible. If you can find that kind of thing in the middle for where it's not a weekend hackathon, it's not, space travel, it's something in between. That's where you find the best people.
Wow, I love that. And last one for you. On that note, so you come in, mentality is we're going to do our best, we might die. How do set goals, especially obviously the big goal is Amy is no longer a teenager, she's an adult, she handles everything on her own, you don't have to intervene, right? She lives on her own now. But that's going to take a long time. How do you set goals in the meantime when, like you said, it's not impossible, but I'm reaching still. It's up there.
So there's that initial bet you're making, which is that this is indeed tractable. This is a universe bound by a kind of set of borders for where if I can do everything within this universe, we have solved it. And that was the first bet for where we jumped into the pool, and you might, as you look up, figure out that it's the ocean and you can't see shore from here. And that's the bet. And that's the first bet you might make, say, you know what, we just didn't make it. But once you've defined it, then here's really just 42 problems, not a set of unknown unknowns, a set of known challenges. Some of them might be 7 months problems, some of them might be 2-year problems on their own, but they're there. And we're simply working that list as we speak right now, and it's a well-defined list for us, as in we're not confused about what we're supposed to work on. We know exactly what to work on, and we think once we've solved all of them, she's a grown-up. She's a superhuman, at least in regards to that of setting up meetings. Then we can start to think about, should there be other skills that she should also have? But right now, we are just working through that list. But in the beginning, it's really taking somebody's hand and say, are you ready? Because we're going to jump tonight into that pool. And we're actually very upfront and honest with our investors in that initial seed round, for where you are not buying into a company or revenue or product. You're buying into 5 brave guys jumping into a pool. And then once we've been swimming for a little while, we'll tell you whether we're going to get to the other side. And if not, at least you have a story to tell. And that was the initial promise. But we've, over the last year, reached far beyond that. So now we know exactly what we need to tackle.
Well, I think you had one insight in there that shows why this is your last venture as promised, because you said once we're done with meetings, we'll start looking at something else. So I think we know that, Amy's going to be around for a very long time, taking care of a lot for us. Right now, Dennis, for someone who doesn't know a lot about Amy, wants to learn more about AI, where can they go and how can you guys help?
They should do 2 things, and I'm biased now, so they can kind of
take it with a grain of salt.
They can tune out, but one, they should go to x.ai, sign up for the wait list, and have this positive experience of interacting with a truly intelligent agent. 2, they should follow some of the posts that we do on our blog, whether that be on deep learning or how to train Amy, or even just some of the other kind of topics that we post on, which I think provides a good backdrop for how to think about agents in the future.
Really?
So we think of this as a complete new software paradigm. And again, I'm biased on both ends, but I think they are interesting items if you want to have a glimpse into the future.
Well, thank you so much, Dennis. It's always a pleasure for me to spend time with you.
Always. Thank you very much for having me.